Hello, my name is Pei Hao Chen. For this assignment, my issue is whether the new strategy can improve patient service. Firstly, what is the new strategy? Well, New Zealand will always have more patients than our public service can cope with any one time. In 2000, our public health system changed from using waiting lists to a new strategy. The strategy aimed to ensure that patients are seen and treated within 6 months. These days, about 90% of patients are getting scheduled service within the 6 months limit. In the last 5 years, more patients have been getting service because of increasing funding. However, about 6,800 people do not receive required service within 6 months' time, and some have waited up to 2 years. So my issue is whether this new strategy can improve patient service or not. And how does it relate to taxation and appropriation planning, change of responsibility and accountability, and financial and performance accounting? I choose this issue because I think medical issue in New Zealand is related to everyone who lives in New Zealand, and I'm an accounting student, so I would like to find out what is happening in the medical systems. Firstly, I would like to talk about taxation and appropriation planning. Taxation and appropriation planning is aimed to ensure enough tax are collected to cover the government expense and providing funds for public entity service used. It is focused on different forms of tax, taking a percentage of all transactions, giving a wide tax base, and the sanctity and the funds are used in society-based interests. It involves decision-making, budgeting, bookkeeping, and performance, etc. From the financial statement of the Government of New Zealand, I found out that 2014 total tax revenue of New Zealand is 60,879 million, and the total revenue is $89,396 million. And from the annual report of Minister of Health, I found out the New Zealand government total spent 14.655 billion in 2013 to 2014. It is about 24% of tax revenue and about 16% of total revenue of New Zealand. I think that health is a big part for New Zealand expenditure, and the Minister of Health used the money to improve the equipment, building hospital, and pay doctor salaries, etc. From the Minister of Health statement of cash flow for 2014, I found out that the highest expense is personal cost. The personal costs include wages for doctors and nurses, etc. And the budget for 2015, the personal cost also is the highest expense. The new strategy is to make sure the patients are seen and treated within 6 months. How can they do that? Increase personal costs and to add more doctors and nurses to work, or building some new hospitals. Minister of Health did it very well. They made 89% of surgical patients receive an FSI within 6 months. 93% of medical patients receive an FSI within 6 months. 89% of surgical patients were treated within 6 months, and 95% of medical patients were treated within 6 months, which the result is quite good. The money that the Minister of Health spent on the new strategy come from government funding. They spend their money on equipment, operation cost, and other expense. The new strategy is the base of the whole medical system. The hospital has to evaluate how many doctors and nurses they need and how many equipment they need based on the 6 months limit. The second part I would like to talk about is chance of responsibility and accountability. Responsibility and accountability both flow upwards in the branch of government heading for the top leader. Top leaders are responsible for ensuring that lower leaders are also held accountable for decision or action. Leaders set financial goal and or budget. Lower level leaders are tasked with putting in place plans to attain these results. So for this part, I think it is more focused on the result, not about the process. The result of the new strategy is quite good. After the strategy was introduced, it mainly set out suggestions for DHBs to improve their booking system and their management of scheduled service so that patients could be more comfortable and receive more detail related to treatment for their family and themselves. DHBs are expected to perform more effective and efficient to match the number of patients accepted and schedule service to their resource. To monitor whether DHBs has met aspects of the strategy after they implemented it, the minister used 8 elective service patient flow indicator, we call it ESPI, as the performance index. From the ESPI, we can tell how does the strategy affect the patients. Does the new strategy has delivered a better service to the patients? For ESPI2, this indicator is used to monitor how many patients waiting longer than 6 months for their FSI. The criterion is to keep it up to 1.5%. In 2006, the proportion of patients seen in June who were seen within 6 months was 78% for surgical patients and 82% for medical patients. And after the new strategy was introduced, the performance has stabilized at 87% to 91% for surgical patients and 90% to 93% for medical patients. This is a clear increase we can see from the percentage index. Also, for the ESPI5 is used to measure that if patients has given commitment to treat, but actually not treated within 6 months. Before the strategy has been introduced, there were 89% or 90% of surgical patients who were treated within 6 months. After the strategy introduced, this index increased to 95% or 96%. The total number of patients who had waited longer than 6 months for treatment did not significantly change, but the pattern of when patients were treated did change. From the above index, I think the new strategy works very well. It makes more patients being seen within 6 months. But there also is something that the new strategy did not do very well and still need to improve and do better. For an example, ESPI1, it measures whether DHB service has appropriately acknowledged and processed all patient referral within 10 working days. This indicator requires all DHBs fully complete with it. The result from this performance index shows all DHBs has complied, except 2 of them, Hawaii Base and Southland DHBs, which means in those 2 DHBs, the strategy still needed to improve and do better. Also for ESPI2, the indicator mentioned before is used to monitor how many patients waiting longer than 6 months for their FSI. The criterion is to keep it up to 1.5%. And the result is no DHB can ensure that all patients receive FSI within 6 months, but 7 of DHBs has exceeded 1.5 variation 9 times. This also is a point that the new strategy needed to improve. All the DHB should ensure that all patients receive FSI within 6 months. Also for ESPI3, there are a number of patients whose propriety score has met or exceeded the threshold but has not received any treatment within 6 months. These patients should be given commitment to treatment. ESPI3 is used to monitor these types of patients waiting without a commitment to treatment, whose propriety are higher than the DHB's minimum treatment threshold. The goal for this indicator is to make sure every patient who meets the threshold will give certainty to treatment, but a small variation of 5% is allowed. According to research, all the DHBs has achieved the 5% standard, but only West Coast DHB and the Tahiti DHB have achieved the goal during 2009 to 2010. From the above information, we can tell there are still a few points that the new strategy doesn't do good enough and need to be improved. I think the DHBs could open longer time some days during a week so they can see more patients. Also, from the above index, we can tell there is some area could not pass the goals. For this problem, I have an idea. Switch the doctors every half year or few months. For an example, a doctor now is working in Christchurch, and a half year later, switch him to Queenstown to work half year, then move him back to Christchurch. So they can do a switch like every 2 years. So this one half year stay in Christchurch and another half year in Queenstown. This will balance the medical level in different areas. And for my advice, there is also some problem. If the DHB open longer hour, like from 8 to 6, so the Minister of Health need to apply more funds from the government because the expense. Then the government need to spend more money on the health part. Probably will reduce fund for some other minister. Or the government can increase the tax rate, and then they can collect more tax from taxpayer. The last part I would like to talk about is financial and performance accounting. The financial and performance accounting is aimed to keep records for how capital expenditure is used, and it also aims to inform the public how the executive branch is performing. It is focused on result, outcomes, and outputs, scientific accountability, and the effective use of resource. For the financial report, there's a lot of things in there, like statement of financial position and the statement of cash flow, etc. In the Minister of Health annual report, there are few financial reports in it. Those reports shows the exact number where the minister used money, and the highest expense is personal cost. This could be case by the new strategy. If they want to treat more patients within 6 months, means they need more doctors and nurse and equipment to treat the patients. And for the performance part, the Minister of Health used ESPI figures to show that the performance has been improved. And for the Minister of Health, how can they tell the public where they used money and how they used it? In the first part, I already discussed the Minister of Health received about 16% of total revenue from government. Where did they use those money? I think the result I discussed in part 2 is the best answer for that. From my point of view, I think that the new strategy can deliver the better service to the patients. The Minister of Health used government funding to make the patient's waiting time shorter. From the second part, all the figures shows that the patient waiting situation is better than before, compared to the previous figure, that the patient's waiting time is shorter. More patients have been treated within 6 months, although there are still a few DHBs did not meet the goal, and there is a lot of details still need to improve. But I believe that the new strategy can improve patient service, and the new strategy will do it even better in the future. When the DHBs can treat all patients within 6 months, their next goal will be treat patients within 3 months or even shorter. Thank you.